Hello, golfers. We thank you for listening to Fairways and Friends podcast, and I want you to try out Back Nine Skincare. This is made for golfers. It's very easy to use. It's not oily. It's clear, and I promise you, you're going to enjoy it. Check them out on social media. They're part of Pods Nations. They're one of our pods. There are people who write about the game of golf, and there are those who write about it and show us so many different qualities and the special aspects of the game. Best-selling author Tom Coyne, and editor of the Golfer's Journal, will be our guest on today's conversation on Fairways and Friends podcast. Welcome, Tom, and thank you for your time, and thank you for joining us today.
Courtney, thanks so much for having me. Excited to be here.
I would describe our relationship as maybe an electronic pen pal. I have a tendency sometimes to tax your inbox with a few emails every now and then, only because I'm a cheerleader, I'm in the gallery, and I'm cheering on you and your team.
I appreciate it. No, it's always great to hear from you. You've been a great supporter of the Golfer's Journal and my work. So yeah, thanks so much for being part of my universe and part of the TGJ universe.
Well, you're very welcome, and I'm very grateful again to have you today. When did you first start writing and telling stories? When did you first fall in love with writing, and you knew that this was something that you were going to pursue?
Yeah, I'm not sure I ever knew it was going to be something I was going to pursue. I think every morning I have to make that decision. Is this really my job? But no, I mean, you do get to a point where it sort of chooses you, I suppose, which I don't want to make that sound too romantic, but it's not one of those careers that you sort of, there's no pre-professional program for, I want to be an author. I mean, yes, be an English major, get an MFA, things like that. But, there are far more talented writers than myself who, haven't, broken through or whatever. So it's, there's a bit of luck. There's good fortune. There's finding an audience, finding, what you do well and what you don't do well. So those are kind of things that, experiences that I went through that, have put me in a place where I do get to do this, daily, which is wonderful. But I mean, I think from an early age, it was the thing I was most interested in. Books, writing, that, and golf. So to be able to put the two together has been a very happy accident. To combine the only two things I probably know anything about, golf and writing. I'm very fortunate for that. But I remember when I was like a kid, I was in first grade, and I wrote a story, a Christmas story, and it was all the words were cribbed from a Christmas dictionary that we had in our classroom. So there were all these big words that a first grader shouldn't be using, but I wanted to see how many I could use in a story. And then I showed it to the teacher, and she was like blown away. I don't know if I told her that I pulled so maybe my first literary work was complete plagiarism, but in any event, she walked me down to the third grade and had me read it. And everyone clapped, and it was all this. And I actually remember that. And I remember I liked the approval. I liked the audience. I liked those two things. And then if writing was a way for me to, these aren't like my most personal, like my best, the best parts of myself, that one's an approval seeker. But when people clap for you, it's like, oh, maybe this is the thing I'm supposed to be doing. That was probably like my first interaction with like, hey, maybe this is something you should do more of. And I did, but it wasn't really until late in college that I thought, all right, I'm going to give myself a couple years. I'd written a book in graduate school, and I said, I'm going to give myself some time and see if I can sell it. And, and we did, and it became a movie, and off we went.
Excellent opening. You hit it right down the middle. And I want to get back to writing, but I'm going to ask a quick question about golf. How old were you when you were introduced to the game of golf, and who introduced you to the game?
Yeah, I was 8 years old. 9 years old. I started taking the junior clinic at my dad's club. So I was introduced to golf from my dad, and he played at Rolling Green outside Philadelphia, great William Flynn golf course. We didn't know like how great it was at the time. When it's just like, oh, that's what the golf course is, and it's the only golf course I knew for most, like, I don't know, for the first 10 years of my life. So you kind of took it for granted, but it's a really, really special place. So yeah, Dad introduced me to it, and went from the clinic to taking lessons to playing on the junior team and really getting into it. My older brother was a good player, which actually made me not want to play golf because it was like his thing. And I was like, no, I'm gonna go do my own thing. And but I got over that, and yeah, and I really got hooked. But I played other sports. I mean, football was probably my biggest sport, in high school and stuff. So I didn't do I wasn't pursuing like college golf or anything like that. I played a little bit of everything and was probably a little more of a student than an athlete at the end of the day. But yeah, it was my summer camp was the club. I caddied in the morning and played every afternoon.
I love that. I love the caddy stories. We're in the embryonic stages of this podcast, and our first four guests all got started in golf by, caddying. Angela Stanford, David Price, Mark Harrison, and just some great golfers and people have some nice fingerprints on the game. I was introduced to your books and to your writing by a very special gentleman. His name is Paul Linus. He's originally from Ireland, and he is the other grandfather of our grandson Silas, who's 6 years old. And Paul Linus started mailing me your books, and I fell in love with them, and I couldn't put them down, and that's when I got hooked. And I love the stories and things you write and how you unpack everything. When you go to, let's talk about a little bit about when you're writing or working with the Golfer's Journal. When you're traveling to a golf course, do you go with a clean slate and just whatever jumps out you're going to write about, or are you thinking in advance that you already know maybe what you're going to try to unearth or you're going to discover or unpack for the readers?
Yeah, I guess it depends on. I mean, it depends on the course. Obviously, when you're going to, if you're going to somewhere of some special reputation or history, that there are certain things that you're going to want to tap into. But no, I mean, for the most part, if you think about like my Ireland or Scotland books or the America book, like I'm going to golf courses that I know very little about, and that's great for me. I kind of want to go into it with a fresh slate and see what sticks out as different or interesting. And that's the great thing about golf. As someone who's telling stories, you really just kind of have to show up. Something's going to happen in the course of your playing, in the people that you're playing with. There's if you look closely enough and you're curious, something's going to present itself that feels like it could be that feels like it's a story. So golf is wonderful for that. It gives you beginnings, middles, ends. It gives you conflict, characters, setting. It gives you all the sort of stuff that any writer would say that they need to work with. So golf is really rich that way. So I show up and I say, all right, I'm usually most interested in trying to just play well. I think I'd never show up to a golf course and think, oh, I'm just here to observe. Like, I'm here to participate. That's my point of view in golf, as someone who plays it and tries to play it well. So, and I think that's a little more interesting than getting just the sort of portrait. There's usually a story there of what you get into when you're actually trying to play good golf.
I'm sure I'm not the first one to tell you that not only the stories in the Golfer's Journal, not only you write of famous places, maybe famous golfers, but you also have a knack and I think a passion for obscure places, obscure golfers or caddies. And that's one of my favorite things about how you guys stitch everything together and unpack it. I love it.
Yeah, I think, we work pretty hard on we have 4 issues a year, and so we have, say there's 11, 12, so we're doing like 50 stories in the book a year, and we have to be pretty. So we think a lot about what that mix is going to be, right? So like in our latest issue, we have a big piece on Shinnecock, told from a pretty interesting angle, but we want to make sure that we're also telling you about places that you don't know anything about. So so we're going to obscure golf courses, public, that there's a mix of accessible courses. We don't want the magazine to read like, oh, look at all these places I'll never play, right? So we're conscious of that. So getting the recipe and the mix right is something we spend a lot of time on. And we're very fortunate that we have so many wonderful writers and so many wonderful stories sent to us, or pitched to us, that that we can make those choices and try and build a compelling book that appeals to someone that's interested in pro golf, course architecture, just golf stories, golf characters, golf places. So there's a lot of different buckets that we try to fill in the journal, and it's something we spend a lot of time on.
Well, you should be very proud. I'm not patronizing you when I tell you, you and your team do an extraordinary job. I absolutely love it. It's one of my favorite days is when I go to the mailbox and I've got that quarterly publication. I want to talk a little bit about, I was very happy to get this book before I went on vacation with the family, and I was able to dive into it, and I've got some more to read. And then, don't mind dropping this, but my birthday, my wife bought me this for my birthday today. And I'll be diving into that as well. But the Sullivan County Golf Club, if I have my facts down right, it started with a social media post from someone you had no idea who they were. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct. I was not looking to get involved in operating a golf course or owning a golf course. I didn't know where Sullivan County was. I didn't know anything about the golf course there. And the superintendent reached out and said, we have this 100-year-old 9-holer that looks like it's probably going to close and the land be sold. Would you come take a look at it? Do you know anyone who could help? Would you want to, I have a design, I'm a partner in a design architecture group, and, would you guys be interested in doing work here, et cetera? So it was, I kind of just, and at the time I was due to produce another book. And I didn't really have a subject in mind. So I thought, I went to look at it on a whim as maybe a story for the Golfers Journal. But when I got there and thought, well, once the owners basically said that I could borrow the course and try and turn it around, I thought, ooh, okay, maybe this is the next book. Maybe it could be like We Bought a Zoo kind of thing, and I could try my hand at, instead of consuming golf, I could try my hand at providing it, right? All my books are like golf dreams, kind of. There's a dreaming element of like going out and doing something unreasonable, and isn't the ultimate golf dream like, what if I had my own golf course? So I do. Yeah, I don't want to spoil the ending of the book, but
no, yeah. I particularly love it, and from a selfish standpoint, I want to mention, I don't expect you to remember this. I'm going to jog your memory a little bit. I first reached out to you. I was very fortunate to be invited with some Colonial members to go over to Carnoustie, and they were recognizing the 70th anniversary of Ben Hogan's victory at the Open Championship there at Carnoustie. And I reached out to you and said, I may want to journal this or blog it, and could I submit it to you for consideration? And we did an email exchange. And at one time, you were considering going over to Scotland and cover a little bit of the journey. And then I opened up my email Sunday, March 5th, 2023 at 6:27 a.m. Courtney, thank you so much for all the effort and being an advocate here for the game of golf. Afraid I have some bad news. Exciting for us, not good news for your trip to Scotland. We just bought a golf course on Friday. And I wanted to keep this. It's in my little journal. And then here it is. You've done it. And it'll be interesting to know when my wife listens to this episode, because we are now members and we joined your club. And looking forward to coming up and playing in the near future. But, man, tell us more. I remember, like, so the superintendent reached out to you on social media, and then I think you were explaining to your wife Allison about you were going to go look at a golf course. I think she said something to the effect of like, "Oh, so we're going to buy a golf course." Said, "No, I'm just going to go look at it," and that turned into. She said, "Okay, we'll go look at it, have fun. Don't bring me any polos. Just bring me back a tie-dye shirt from that area."
Yeah, no, it was it's a cool area. Like I said, I'd never been, but once I got up there, I realized it's very close to where they had Woodstock and where all the it's Dirty Dancing country, so it's where all the huge Jewish resorts were back in the heydays of what they called the Borscht Belt. So where literally where Dirty Dancing would have been set, what it was around the corner from Sullivan County Golf Club at Grossinger. So tons of cool history, but the Catskills were a place that kind of time forgot. And by the 80s, 90s, those resorts were closed. And one of the only things that was left from that era was this golf course. So, once I got to know the place more, got to know that history more, got to know the people more, the more important the place became and the more it became a part of my life. Originally the first year the idea was we got to borrow the course. I had to pay all the bills and the taxes and everything, but the owners were like, "Hey, take it for a year, kick the tires, see if you want to buy it." So I borrowed it for a year, and I thought that's what the story was going to be. Like, what's it like to actually try and run a golf course? Can you make money? Can you turn it around? Well, what's it like to mow a fairway? So, I spent that first summer mowing fairways. But what was amazing was, the word started to get out on social media, like what was happening, and we started telling stories about the place, and people started coming up. People wanted to check it out. People started joining. So it's $500 to be a member, and we want to price it that way, not only so that our locals, can continue to afford their golf, but so that people from outside the area can be a part of the story and join it as well. So that's been amazing. The first year we had people joining from Ireland and England and California and Texas, people who would never come see it and just wanted to support local community rural golf. And like those, and it makes such a huge difference. I mean, we're a small mom and pop golf course, but it's a really good golf course. It's on the side of a mountain, so it's incredibly interesting terrain. It's wild terrain. Like, you would not build this golf course today, the way the land moves. Some of the pitches are pretty unreasonable. But for me, that makes it incredibly fun. It makes me think of like some of the courses I played in Ireland or Scotland that are older, and just the fairways go the way they go because of the way the land moves, whether you like it or not. So it's a really fun place. But at the end of the day, it really became about the people. And Sean, the superintendent, my partner on this, he wasn't willing to let it go, and I wasn't going to let him down, and then I wasn't willing to let it go, and then the current owners, they decided to stick around as my partners. We brought in some new partners, which was pretty exciting. Bill Murray, Jason Kelsey, Mike Madden, of the Madden football family. They're wonderful people, and they came on board to help us out. So, I mean, we have a lot of owners now. Actually, we have more owners than we do have golf holes, I think. But it's, everyone's in it for the right reasons. They want a good thing to last, and to be affordable and to be accessible. And it's, I don't know, it's a good spot.
It really looks like it has a great vibe. It's not pretentious. It's
No.
very welcoming. You've been very intentional about keeping prices low and making it easy to become a member and use the club. In fact, this weekend you've got the club championship going on. I love that.
We do. We have the club championship. I won with the first year when I got up there. They hadn't had a club championship in years, and I mean the club was just holding on by a shoestring. The clubhouse was pretty much shuttered. I mean, when I go up there and look at, I mean, it's not perfect, but man, we have come a long way in a couple of years. It's amazing, the transformation. So yeah, I think we have 15, 16 folks going out there to fight for the club championship Saturday, which is super exciting, but I'm not one of them. I did play the first year, which I had mixed feelings about. I'm like, it's kind of weird to go out and win. It's very Trumpian to go win the club championship at your own golf course. So I did it once, and then I'm like, all right, I'm not going to do that again. So I'll be happy to hand the trophy off to somebody else this weekend.
What was it like going taking maybe a break from writing, and you're doing payroll and you're working on irrigation. And I love you tell about the battle of hole number 6, your nemesis, where you're always getting the mower stuck in a wet area. How did it go from? How did it feel like going from your craft to now paying attention to fertilizer and getting the clubhouse restored?
Yeah, it was really fun, to be honest. I mean, difficult and stressful, but fun, because I mean, I'm a big believer in sort of trying to learn new things, take on new challenges. 7 years ago, they asked me to host the Golfers Journal podcast. I had no idea what that would entail, or I didn't know how to make the microphone work or any of that. So, but I was like, oh, this is a chance to learn a new skill. So Sullivan County has been a chance to learn all these different skills. The one I like the least are the financial ones, for sure. I don't know what withholding tax is all about and all that stuff. Thankfully, there's my accountant does. But yeah, having to, doing payroll and, getting a mower to go and all these things. It's like, what a cool thing this is to get to do. Right. Like, it's quite nice to get away from. I mean, I can be one, and when I'm working on something, I will lock myself away for long stretches of time, and it's not the best for my family. But and sometimes I'll literally leave and go on a retreat somewhere just to write around the clock, and it's nice to take a break from that. And actually, for me, it was huge to be. I've always kind of been a sole proprietor of all the things that I've done. It's like, okay, I wrote this, or my name's on this, and this is the thing that I do. And now suddenly I'm a part of a team. We're definitely a team at the Golfers Journal as well, but we're like a virtual team. Sometimes we're all over the place in terms of where we live. So to actually like punch the clock alongside Sean and Chris and Jimmy and John and at lunchtime get together and tell stories and all the terrible things that happened that day and rah, rah, rah. Like I never had been in a position like that. I never had water cooler talk. I'd never been in an environment like that. So that was fun. I love that.
Now, at the beginning, when you've got the other 3 owners, Kelsey, Mr. Murray, Mr. Madden, it's an unlikely foursome. Is that fair to say?
It's pretty unlikely. It's about as unlikely as it gets. I mean, and yeah, from this, you would think if I said, oh, I own the course with these people that I like run in certain circles or hang out with famous people. I don't. They just are people that golf put into my life, and I've played a lot of golf. So I've that list of people is pretty long, like you, Courtney, so, you're bound to have a few people on there that, might be willing to take a shot on a golf course. And those were the folks who would.
What do each one of these people, and I won't dwell on the focus on these individuals, but I'm curious as to what each of them bring to the table. I'm not talking about financially, obviously, just the contribution as a golfer.
Yeah. Well, I think Mike Madden is certainly the one who's been there the most, and he probably lives the farthest away. He lives out in the Bay Area, and but he actually owns Fighters Heaven in Pennsylvania, which is not far away. Fighters Heaven was Muhammad Ali's training camp, and so he bought that and restored it into a museum. And so I gotten to know him through golf. So it was like, hey, Mike, there's this course like an hour from Fighters Heaven, like that I'm involved in. Do you want to be a part of it? And so he'll come up a couple times a year. He's having a lot of fun with it. He loves Sean. He loves the team. And I think he's just when I went out looking for partners, and I didn't have a lot of time to look. It all kind of had to happen very quickly once we decided, okay, we are going to stick around and we are going to try and buy it. It was just like, all right, I don't need like business partners who are going to look at a P&L sheet or look at a business plan and mull it over and all this, that, and the other. This isn't really that kind of investment. I need golf loving people who want to do something good by a community and maybe make some money and hopefully not lose money. And so Mike was in it he didn't get in it to lose money, I'm sure, but he was in it for the fun, and he's brought a lot of fun. He's very enthusiastic about about Sullivan County. Bill's great. He was up there for our 100-year celebration last summer and just had the best time. So it's fun when we talk. He doesn't, he's obviously very busy, doesn't get up there as much as he'd probably like to, but he always asks, what's going on with the course? How's the course going? Or when are we going to get caddies? I think that's a long time off when we're going to have caddies. We're a 9-hole course in the Catskills, but one never knows. And Jason's been a big support as well. I mean, he could be the busiest person in the in the universe. God bless him. But he was up there recently, where they did some filming and some shooting, and so it's, obviously he's a person that's very much in the public light. So it's been awesome that he's been able to help shed and share some of that light on our little golf course. That has certainly helped a lot.
Was there a turning point at the very beginning that you said, I cannot let this golf course not reach its 100th birthday?
Yeah, I mean, I think in the book there are a few moments that where I feel really connected to it. One is just watching Sean and his family, after his wife would come to pick him up at the end of the day, and they'd bring their daughter, who at the time was 5 or 6 years old, and they would go walk the golf course, and just kind of seeing her playing in the stream. We have a trout stream that runs through the course, and walking the golf course, and just being out there and seeing that for his family, this was kind of their backyard. And I thought, that certainly, I could, once you see that, you're I don't think I can see this being anything other than that. And then I do remember some of the point where the old members the former members who owned the golf course back in the day, they were somewhat some were sort of suspicious of what we were doing. Some were harder to please than others. Some were incredibly excited from the start and were super supportive. But some of those tougher to please members, when they started enjoying it, and I saw them on a Saturday just sitting around the chair, the Adirondack chairs I bought, and having a beer and enjoying each other's company, you're this place is important. This community needs a place for these guys to do exactly this. And at that point you're okay, I've been put here for a reason, so let's make the best of it.
You've traveled all over the world. You've played famous golf courses. You've written about famous golf courses. Is there something that Sullivan County Golf Club taught you that the other courses haven't?
Yeah, I think it's it's basically taught me that I think there's a line in the book where I talk about, the best golf course in the world is the one that you're standing on. And, because I've never been a rankings chaser or whatever, but I have chased, I've been to a lot of nice places, and I made the effort to do that. And so I would go to there's a point in the book where I'm out in Monterey playing Cypress and Monterey Peninsula, all that. And then the next day I come back to Sullivan County and I'm what are we doing? We'll never be like that. And then you realize who cares? It's all about where you are right now and who you're with. And
I love that.
Do you have the chance to tee a ball up and try and make it go straight and far? And that's what matters. And, so I'm probably, it's made me less ambitious to, be on a list or cross a name off a list. That doesn't really interest me a whole lot anymore. I'm certainly, I'm just interested in the places where you feel good. And I think Sullivan County is a place where you feel good.
Now that you've witnessed some of the long-standing golfers or members that were originally part of it, do you think are they looking at you as a steward now versus being an owner?
I think they're looking at me as it's a good question, because I'm not sure. I think at first it was a little bit who's that? Who is this person out on the mower? And he's not from here, and it's a pretty small, tight community. Everybody knows everything that's going on, and so I was definitely a carpetbagger, if you will. So, but yeah, no, they definitely, I think, came to like trust that our intentions were all for the best. I mean, we did a lot of remodeling and a lot of work on the golf course, so um, that definitely annoyed a lot of the locals. Like, what are you fixing? What are you changing this for? The course needed some changing. We wanted to put in a driving range. We needed to um, make the course a little more walkable. There were some holes that needed some attention. A ton of clearing needed to be done. So we did that, but it was a mess, and it took time, and it took a couple years for it to grow back in, and because we don't have irrigation up there, we hand water the greens. So they've been patient, and some stayed away while that happens, and now they're starting to come back, and it's wonderful. So yeah, it's good.
You mentioned Cypress Point, and I want to shift a little bit and talk more about the Golfer's Journal. And by the way, I love what you're unpacking. I love the story about a course called Home. And as mentioned before, I'm excited about coming up and trying it out. And I want to support you because you did something that matters, and people will remember. And I'm hoping 100 years from now they'll look back and go, he was a steward, and he was a friend of the game, and you are a friend of the game. We don't need to wait for 100 years to announce that.
Thank you, Courtney.
So I had the good fortune last August to play Cypress Point, and it was just indescribable. I got this incredible caddy, Ray Sturbick, and you featured Ray in, I believe, the fall of 2022. In fact, I think I did bring it. Volume number 21. And Ray's story at Cypress Point, living underneath those trees for 7 months. And just the whole thing. Now I found out about it. We were walking, and he says, "Courtney, do you like to read?" I go, "Yeah, I love to read. Absolutely love to read." And he goes, "What magazines do you read?" Well, I try to read them all. I said, "My favorite, is Golfer's Journal. But I have friends that work at other publications." And he goes, "Really?" He smiled, and he goes, "Well, I'm featured in that." And I said, "Get out of here." And he told me, and then he told me to his area and what's all preserved. And it's just a great story. And someone told me that, if he enjoyed our outing that day, that eventually someday you might get a calendar in the mail. And sure enough, he mailed us a calendar. Now I'm mailing him books, and I'm going to mail him some of your books. But talk to us about Ray Sturbick and the caddy story as best you recall.
Yeah, so that was a great story in the journal. That was it was written by my colleague Casey Ban, and he did such a wonderful job with that. Yeah, that's a great issue. Cypress is, we got to put Cypress on the cover, which is not an easy shot to get. It's not easy, not easy to drone out there at all. So we got this great shot at Cypress, and then Ray's story, which is totally incredible. How he essentially is living on Cypress Point, like he's living on the golf course. And yeah, I guess it's when you're walking from 15 to 16.
Yes.
Yeah. So in the woods there, like right on the water's edge, he had basically a campsite where he was living. And there was kind of, people knew about it. It seemed like there was kind of an understanding, he wasn't bothering anyone, and, he was very close to work and showing up to caddy. So, it became this sort of lore and legend around Cypress. And when Casey, when we heard about this story, it was like, oh, this is one we really want to tell. And that's the tricky thing, though, when the stories about Cypress or Pine Valley or Augusta, like those can be difficult places to get access to tell the stories. So
very delicate.
It is delicate. So thanks to Cypress for allowing Casey to go out there and walk the golf course with Ray and tell that story, and allowing us to photograph it as well. I mean, I think that's one of the exciting things with what's happened with the journal over the years, is that people and places acknowledge the quality of it and what we're trying to do, so that there really, at this point, there really isn't a place that we can't ask. And that's, as an editor and, as part of the team, that's a good feeling, that we can say, hey, we can feature a hole at Pine Valley, which we've done. We can do a story at Cypress, and that they trust that we're going to do it the right way. So Casey definitely did it the right way. That's such a cool story, and what a great character of the game Ray is, and it was great to be able to get him in the book.
I like talking to caddies and asking them who they've all caddied for, and he had so many incredible stories. And then I've been fortunate to stay in touch with him. I will tell you, he's converted that caddy opportunity into a great opportunity, because when I call out there and talk to the caddy master, or I email him, he goes, Ray's not here this week. He's in Ireland caddying with some of the members, or he's at Augusta caddying with some of the members. So I'm a little jealous, but good for him for converting a campsite into just an incredible journey.
Yes.
When it comes to writing, with your creative mind, and you mentioned earlier that sometimes you go away and maybe sequester yourself to just write nonstop. How do you keep up with how do you start assembling everything? Do you have notebooks? Do you put it on your phone, your laptop? How do you not let something escape you, being very creative and just a very talented writer, to say the least?
Well, I think it's been different with every project's a little different. The books have been different. I remember when I did a course called Ireland, I was doing a lot of note taking in a journal in my back pocket, in the corner of a pub at night. Very romantic, very, I felt like Yeats back in the corner with my pint or whiskey or whatever, very, very, very romantic. And then it got less romantic with Scotland. I was keeping notes on a laptop, and then America, I was dictating into a phone all my thoughts. So if I'm doing something big and longer, I am taking a lot of notes along the way, or even for a feature in the Golfer's Journal, there's a lot of notes. Technology has helped in that I can record an interview and have it transcribed instantly now, which is nice, on my phone. So, but that's just I think for me, that's a small part of it, and the least interesting part of writing is just okay, let's collect. That's like collecting the data, right? Mm-hmm. So that you have so you can go back and say, oh, this happened, that happened at this place, or this is how that joke went, or it's for fact checking and all those things. Honestly, for a course called Home and course called America, I mean, my notes, I had over 500 pages of notes, but at the end of the day, I almost don't look at them. I'll go back and check things here and there, and I'll take a quick stroll through them just so I don't, oh, that was a good joke or that was a good story. I want to make sure that gets in there. But it's the stuff that sticks in your memory that you have the impulse to talk about or the impulse to tell. Those are the stories that you should be telling. I think if you have to search, at least my memory's still good enough at this point, where if I have to search for something too hard, it probably wasn't that compelling. So it kind of, you let it sit for a while and then, sit down. I don't write none of the books, or I don't write anything while I'm doing the research. I've never written a page of any of the books while I was actually out there doing it. Because you don't know what the stories are about until they're finished, right? And then you go back and you're like, oh, okay, this is actually a story about place or friendship or obsession, or, and then you can start writing to that.
Tom, what has been, going back to writing and talking about the notes and then your memory, how much gets left on the editing floor after you've capped 500 pages, and then you just fact check them? How much gets left on the floor?
Yeah, tons, a lot. But the good stuff gets into the book. It's the good stuff gets into the story, because most of the notes are, I did this, I went there, I shot this, I met this person, they were, this is what they did for, there's just a lot of stuff that doesn't that if it's not terribly compelling, or doesn't in some way connect to like the things that I'm trying to tell or talk about, that it's going to get left out. So I would say, there's just because, A Course Called Ireland was 4 months. Scotland was, um, 2.5 months, I guess. America was 8 months. So your day to day of like everything you do is quite boring, to be honest. I drove really far again. Um, but every once in a while, well, if you're out there for 8 months on one of those drives, something incredibly interesting is going to come into view or come into your life. And so I wish I had a different way to, I wish I was more efficient, that I didn't need to spend so much time waiting for stories to come find me, which is probably why I'm compelled to. I mean, I'd love to go back and I think I will start writing fiction again. I started life as a fiction writer. My first book was a novel. So, where you get to invent, the action instead of having to wait for the action to happen or go create it yourself. Um, that's a very different sort of imaginative challenge, of course. But it's something you can do from the comfort of home, which I'm looking forward to.
What makes a great story, whether it's a book or something in the publication Golfer's Journal?
I think all great stories are about problems, right? Every story, the word drama actually comes from comes from the Greek for crisis. And so if you don't have some sort of problem, which is sometimes difficult to locate in a golf story, and a lot of stories that maybe we get sent at the Golfer's Journal, that's probably what they're essentially missing. Because sometimes you go out and you have a nice day and you play with someone really interesting and they tell you a cool story, or they tell you about all the things that they've done, and you're like, wow, I should write that down. But that's not why we read. That's not why we listen. We listen to learn things. And I think going back to even when we were living in caves and people were scratching the first stories on cave walls, it was about like, this is how I got the bear, or this is how the bear got me. There's a or bear got him, because if it was you probably wouldn't be writing it. So, we're trying to learn something about how to better walk this path in life. And so the way that we do that is by consuming and watching other people's struggles and problems. And that's just part of being human. So, yeah. So I think like that's why the Ireland book starts with me almost getting mauled by a dog. The Scotland book begins with a shipwreck. The America book begins with me being lost. The home book begins with me stuck in the mud. And that was what was great about writing A Course Called Home in Sullivan County, and that's probably why I was most immediately attracted to everything about the place. Was I'm always looking for where's the problem here, and Sullivan County had plenty of problems. The problems were abundant. So it's like, man, there's going to be a lot to write about up here.
I love how you describe it. You're talking about the clubhouse. Looked like it had a bad case of dandruff and it was shaking it all off. Talking about the paint.
It was fun. It was, yes, there was plenty to be remedied up there. So every day is a new problem, a new challenge. And I don't think that ever changes at a golf course, because you're always trying to make something a little bit better. So there's always something to work on.
Yeah, and your partnership with Mother Nature, and she's 51% owner. It's always a challenge. Why do you think long storytelling still matters today in a world of 30-second videos on social media?
Yeah, I think it matters. I think it's becoming more and more important, right? So yes, in the Golfer's Journal, when the Golfer's Journal started, and I was told about this place that was going to have, long form storytelling, when everything was going digital and was going online. It just was such a zig to the world as the world was zagging. And it was like, will this work? Will there be an audience for it? And, what's the future of books? And, those people have had all those panics and conversations a lot. But I think the more our world becomes consumed in reels and bites and things like that, that's not enough. I think people feel it in their gut that that's not enough, that they need if we can offer somebody, if it's through a book or through the Golfer's Journal, if you can offer someone a chance to put down their phone and pick up a physical thing and engage with it for a meaningful amount of time, that is one of the best things you can give someone in the world we're living in. You know, that break from the noise is so important. And I only think it's getting more important.
I somehow went through a period of time where I got out of the habit of reading, and I regret it. I'm back into it. I've been into it for several years now. Absolutely love it, and it's life changing. And what the experiences and things you learn and what you can share, I just think it's very rich. I'm going to move to a little bit of a lightning round, but that doesn't mean we're going to wrap up anytime soon. But I do have a few more questions I want to fire at you. But
sure,
I saw a lightning round on one of the popular podcast, and I thought, you know what, I think I'll try that. So I'm gonna fire them at you. Do you recall the favorite opening sentence you've ever read in your publication or in your books, either Golfer's Journal or your book? Favorite opening sentence you've ever read?
Jim Moriarty has, and I can't quote the whole thing because it's pretty long, but he has a great opener writing about the Monterey Coast that I think is our, and there's a line in there that like this coastline that was meant to be left to poets and playwrights and is now it's been overrun by, it was just so gorgeous and wonderful. But my favorite opening line, it's not, there's an opening line by a writer named Chris Jones, who has written for the Golfer's Journal, but he did a story in Esquire about the astronauts being stuck on the space station, and his first line was, "The coffee was going to be a problem," and that was it. It was a one-line paragraph, and I copied that when my first line in a course called Ireland is, "The dog was going to be a problem," and I told Chris that I did that years later, and he appreciated it, so it was okay. But I was like, I used to teach writing at St. Joe's University, and I would talk about that line because it's like the coffee was going to be a problem. It has a situation, it has a scenario, it's visual, it's vivid, it's sensory, and it has a crisis. And so in just a handful of words, you're doing all the work that a lesser writer would take pages and pages to accomplish. So that one always just stuck with me as so wonderfully efficient.
Excellent answer. One of the most underrated golf courses or underappreciated golf courses, in your opinion?
I would say, for sure. No, there's a bunch. Some of my friends are off playing Strand Hill in Ireland right now, and I think that sits in the shadows a little too much. I think in Philadelphia, Rolling Green doesn't get enough love because this is a section with a lot of big heavyweights. I play at Waynesboro. I think that's a great golf course that doesn't get enough love because when you're overshadowed, and I think like when you're in a section like Philly, Marion, Aronimink, Pine Valley, that sort of overshadows everything. So many great courses there. And in New York, like Shinnecock and National overshadow Southampton, which Southampton is like all world to me. So, man, there are so many. I could go on forever about those.
Favorite book not written by Tom Coyne?
I would say that's a tough one. A lot of favorites. A story collection by Raymond Carver called Where I'm Calling From was pretty important to me. And then there's a novel by Tim O'Brien, Going After Cacciato. I read that and it just exploded in my brain. So,
one golf course that you would wish every golfer would visit while they have a chance?
Sullivan County Golf Club.
I love it. I love it.
Easy one.
Right. Walking or riding?
Oh, walking all day.
Scotland or Ireland?
Oh, Courtney, you're going to get me in trouble. I think they're two different trips. And for the fun and the friendships that I have, I have to go to Ireland, and obviously, and my family's from there and all that stuff. So But I still love Scotland, and I love going there, and everyone should go. But it's always Ireland for me.
Now, I think if my memory serves me right, which is always very dangerous, is it pronounced Carn or Carnes Club in Ireland? Is it Carn or Carnes?
Carn.
Carn.
Carn, C-A-R-N-E.
It's kind of northwest Ireland.
Yeah, it's in the
Is it
far
one of your favorite
west.
places?
Yes.
Are you going there soon?
I will be there in September for a little. I'm hosting 2 trips and I have a few days in between, and I'm going to go up to Cairn and that's the only place I'm going. I love it there.
I'll put you on the spot. So in the 11th hour of when one of your pods drops out and can't play, you've got my cell number.
You're on.
I love it. I may go over there in September, and here's why. Here's my strategy. So all the tee times are booked up, and I'm talking about early September. And maybe I'll do 2 trips. Maybe I'll go see your place at Sullivan, and then hop on over to Carn Club. And but September, everybody's already booked. They've got all their tee times booked. They've done everything. The Open Championship's done. And their window, I think, is coming to a close. I stand to be corrected, but I'm thinking September I might sneak over there.
I think you should, and especially if you're going to be if you don't have. I mean, gosh, I'm used to traveling with 24 people now on our trips, and so those take years of planning.
Yeah, they really do.
But if you're traveling with just you or a friend, and especially if you're going west or northwest, you'll get out wherever you want, and they'll be happy to have you.
I've been very fortunate with some travel. I haven't traveled like you, but I've been fortunate to do some traveling. And the relationships, I still stay in touch with the caddies. Scott Reed at Carnoustie, the captains of many of the clubs, even the drivers. I still talk to James Ray, who lives just outside of Panmure. But those relationships are great. And that's why it's fun to go back, because you're connected, it's intimate, and then you're playing this great game.
For
Tom,
sure.
Years from now, when someone pulls some of your books off the shelves, what do you hope they discover about golf, and what do you hope they discover about life?
Wow. I hope that they discover that golf is, I hope people are still playing golf. And I hope that, the best compliments or notes that I get from readers are always, there's different ones, but my favorite is I don't even really golf and I enjoyed this. So that's nice. Meaning, okay, I was able to tell a story that is maybe just bigger than 5 irons and pitching wedges, So I hope that, frankly, that they're just entertained whether they golf or not. And that, and then the other best note is hey, the book's reignited my passion for golf. So, I would love it if someone picks it up and says, "Oh, I should play more, or I should travel more, and I should go see other places." I think one of the best things golf can do for us is enable us to see other people, other places, and meet other people. And so it's I love playing my home course as much as anyone, but it's a great opportunity to just learn about how the world is.
Lance Barra said the very same thing. I asked him what were some favorite things that he has gained from his broadcast 40 years at CBS and some of the most iconic television sports happening. He said that he would meet people that said, I watch golf, but I don't play it. But I watch it because you're always broadcasting in a beautiful place. It's very quiet. It's very relaxing. I may take a nap, but your broadcast makes me, feel great. And then some of them do. Well, maybe I'll start playing again. So I love that. It's a very similar answer.
Sure.
All right, we're going to wrap it up here in a minute. We're going to do some closing questions. And
Okay.
We're going to fire them at you. Who has had the greatest influence on your life through the game of golf?
My dad. Easy. Yeah. All the time that I got to spend with him because we played golf. That's why I'm most grateful to golf, for sure.
What lessons what are the best lessons golf's taught you that you've used away from the golf course?
To get over yourself, You're not that important. You know, it right sizes your ego. I think golf is a humbling game, and you're just another person on the life raft of par. You know, trying to hold on to the best you can. You're not that great, and you're not that bad. You probably exist somewhere in the middle, and golf's good at figuring that out. And I think it's a good perspective for most of one's life.
I love that. All right, last question. And again, I'm so grateful for your time, and it's just been really great. When individuals that listen to our conversation, what is at least one thing you hope they take away? We've covered a lot, but what's the one thing you would like for them to take away from our conversation today?
That they should come play Sullivan County Golf Club. That would be one thing.
I'm so glad I joined the other day.
I know. There you go.
I don't feel guilty.
No, I think if there's one thing, I mean, we've talked a lot about golf and writing, and I hope that you know, that they would just be excited about both, right? That if someone doesn't have a book to read this summer, I'm not saying pick up my book, but pick up a book and enjoy that. And if someone hasn't been playing golf, man, it takes us on some great adventures. So go play golf. Yeah, that's the best you could ask for sure.
Fantastic. Again, thank you so much, Sam. Great job with your work. And listeners, may your fairways be wide and your friendships run deep. And I hope to see you in the fairway real soon. Thanks again.